Welcome to the John E. Marlowe Guitar Series. My name is Candace Mowbray, and I am the Grants and Education Specialist for Marlowe Guitar International. Before each of the series concerts, we have a pre-concert presentation to give us insights into the music that's going to be performed. And I'm very pleased to introduce our next guest speaker, Dr. Kevin Vigil. Dr. Kevin Vigil holds degrees from Shenandoah University, where we first met many years ago, and also Yale University and the University of Memphis. He joined the faculty of Heritage High School in Virginia during the 2005-2006 school year. He was named the 2014 Shenandoah University Teacher of the Year for Loudoun County Public Schools, and was presented with a Sir Winston Churchill commemorative crown by Churchill Fellow Helen Sanderson for his work in guitar education in 2017. In 2020, Dr. Vigil was chosen as the Joan C. Edwards Distinguished Professor in the Arts at Marshall University. Dr. Vigil has been published in several guitar magazines and journals and has presented lectures for the Guitar Foundation of America, Yale University, Philadelphia Guitar Society, James Madison University, Marshall University, and many others. Several of his instructional videos are featured on GFA TV, which can be accessed on YouTube. Dr. Vigil led the Virginia Music Educators Association Guitar Council in the formation of the newly established Virginia Guitar Directors Association, for which he is the first president. He also serves as the Southern representative for the National Association of Music Educators Council for Guitar Education.
Hello, I'm Kevin Vigil, and I recently had the honor and privilege to speak with our featured artist, Bill Cannon-Geiser, about his upcoming performance featuring his Diaspora project. Joining us in the conversation is Miroslav Lonchar, the conductor of the Loudoun Youth Guitars, who will be performing on the final piece of the program. So, stick around and enjoy our chat. Well, I am joined with our featured artist, William Cannon-Geiser. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Kevin, how's it going? It's so good to be here.
Oh, it's great. I'm so glad that you're here with us. And also we have with us Miroslav Lonchar. He'll be conducting the final piece on the program. How are you, Miro?
Doing great. Nice to be here too.
Awesome. So, I gotta say, I'm looking at this program. It's pretty amazing. I mean, this is really fantastic. I think it's going to be probably one of the best programs I've ever witnessed, to be honest. And that's how I feel about it. I think, just there's a little bit for everybody, I think, on this program. And this is the title of your program. At least I don't know if I'm guessing that's going to be printed right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it says Diaspora, right? So I know that this is part of a big project you've been working on, and I've read all about it. I'm just like, whoa, this is just amazing. Without going into each piece individually at this point, can you give us just a general overview about this project?
Absolutely. So, the final piece on the program, as we'll discuss, is a piece by Sergio Assad called The Walls, with solo guitar and guitar orchestra. But it was a lunch that I had with Sergio that started this whole thing. And this was back in, 2017, right at the point where there was so much, tension about, immigrants and migrants and people from foreign countries and, refugees and things like that. And Sergio and I were talking, it's like, what can we do as musicians? We feel so hopeless here, helpless, And I said, well, Sergio, write me a piece. And he goes, okay, I'll write you a piece. And it started this idea of, then I ended up commissioning 7 composers in total and getting a grant from the Augustine Foundation. And I asked each of the composers, write whatever you want, but in some way reflect like your feelings about this, the idea that cultures, spread, and out of their, what's considered their homeland to other places. And I got this wonderful panoply of pieces that in many different styles and moods, but all expressing common thread. And I think the guitar is so perfect for this, because the guitar really is the universal instrument. There's some relative of the guitar in every musical culture, and by imitating all these different nuances of sound, we can evoke on the guitar all these different cultures.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I got to tell you, the subject matter here, I think this is really where the rubber hits the road, when it comes to the arts. I mean, I think about some other pieces. Well, of course, there have been some huge pieces orchestrally and things like that, but even in the guitar world, I think about Ben Verdery's scenes from Ellis Island, or
Yeah.
maybe Thomas Flippin's, Coven of Minneapolis. I mean, that's uh, some really powerful music out there, and
Yeah.
those are, and I'm not saying anything bad about them, but they're one piece, one piece. This is a huge project. 7 pieces, you said?
Yeah, and actually, four of those seven are being performed, on this concert, and including a piece that actually was going to be the world premiere, but when this concert had to be postponed, it's just by a week. It misses. I'm going to do the world premiere in Cleveland, of the piece by Andrea Clearfield, which is based on Tibetan court music. Yeah.
Yeah, and now, how do you say that instrument that she's writing? She wrote reflections on the life of, is it Dramyan? Is that correct?
Dranyan, the Dranyan.
Dramyan.
Apparently, it's spelled about six different ways because it's a transliteration. We finally settled on one particular spelling. The Dranyan is, I mean, it's known as the Himalayan lute, and to me, it looks kind of like halfway between like a, I don't know if you know a saz. That's the Turkish three-stringed drone instrument. It's like a saz, but it also looks a little like a vina to me. It's got this carved headstock. But it's a strummed drone instrument, and in her piece, Andrea Clearfield is a wonderful composer from Philadelphia, who's also a musicologist, and she traveled to Nepal 2 times to meet with traditional Tibetan musicians and record them, essentially capturing these melodies that might otherwise have just disappeared. And so one of these songs that this court musician sang was this ode to the Dranyan. Like it's like his, oh, what a wonderful instrument this is. And she adapted this melody, and we worked together quite a bit. She was the only non-guitarist that I commissioned, so there was a little learning curve with, okay, how does this really work? It was very collaborative, but it really hits like these certain things in traditional Tibetan music that I was not aware of, and it's a pretty fun piece. It has a lot of interesting sound effects in it.
Right, and I actually, when I saw the instrument, I looked it up and I watched some recordings, and it's fascinating. Some people are dancing while they play it.
I've
But,
seen that video. It looks like Chuck Berry.
yeah.
They look like Chuck Berry. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and so that was pretty neat. And so that's kind of interesting because she's, an American, but she's writing Tibetan styled music, and which kind of, you were talking earlier about your project, and so the whole idea of being away from home, whether or not you choose to be, right?
Right.
And but and I just think about the Dalai Lama, and that sort of thing. So I think it's just a very powerful concept, and I can't wait. Just
Yeah.
can't wait to hear it, to be honest. I'm
Well,
excited.
another piece, but there's another piece by a wonderful female composer. Her name is Golfam Khayyam, and she's from Iran. And I found out about her through my really good friend Dusan Bogdanovich. And Dusan, she studied with Dusan in Geneva. She studied composition. She also studied actually with Claire Callahan in Cincinnati.
Nice.
But she's a wonderful player, musician, and she's an expert, especially in Persian improvisation and ornamentation. That's her big thing, and applies it to the guitar. And her life story was basically she was this young talented musician who came first to the United States and then to Europe to study, develop a career, and then she chose to go back to Iran, raise a family and develop her career. And she said when she came back, she almost didn't recognize her own country. And the piece she wrote is called Lost Land. And for me, the amazing thing is the indication at the beginning of the piece is adagio disorientato. And it's like you think you know where you're going or you know where you are, and then you turn a corner and you don't recognize it. And she's able to sort of paint this amorphous kind of texture. It begins as if you're playing some Bach. Like it begins, oh, this is the prelude from one of the Bach violin sonatas, and then it just goes, whoa, no, it's not. and it goes in a number of different ways and uses these very light filigreed melismatic ornaments before notes, and it takes a little bit of the cross string trill kind of technique. But the other thing that really creates the atmosphere for this piece is she asked that you tune the sixth string all the way down to low A. So way down.
Wow.
Now, because of that, I'm actually bringing a second guitar because if I tried to, do it on a normal guitar, it would sound floppy. So I've got a special string on there, but it gives this profundity to the piece, and it's a really poetic piece that I think leaves a real interesting taste in your mouth when it's finished. It's really special.
Wow, I'm just so excited about that, and it sounds like these pieces are going to be maybe out of the ordinary for most of our listeners, right? And so I'm so excited about that. Now, what might seem maybe a little more familiar might be Brian Johansson's piece, right? So can you talk a little bit about the Bootlegger's Tale?
Yeah, so I've known Brian Johansson for like 35 years at least. The LAGQ has commissioned a number of pieces by him. For those who don't know him, he's one of the most prolific and talented composers. It's unbelievable how much great stuff he produces. It's like he can write a piece a day. It's unreal.
And his penmanship is amazing.
He doesn't use a software. He writes it, and it's like he's already got the piece written in his head with the page turns and everything, and he just dictates it. It's like, yeah, he's amazing. I asked him to write this piece, and he said it was really interesting for him because he's written in so many different styles, but he said, I've never really written a kind of Celtic piece before, which is funny because my grandfather was born in Ireland. His maternal grandfather. I always thought he was just pure like Scandinavian with that name. So he said when he was growing up, his grandfather would tell these stories about when his grandfather moved to the United States. He lived in basically Appalachia, that kind of area, and to survive, they did what he did in Ireland, which is to make grain alcohol. And then when Prohibition started, they became outlaws. And he said his grandfather would tell these stories, like, with really rough language about, like the still and moving the still and hiding and then running away. And, and so he wrote this piece that's extremely programmatic. It's a 4-movement suite, and first movement is Lament for a Broken Still. It's kind of a Baroque Passacaglia, and the next one is Ode to Whiskey with a couple of doubles, and that one he throws in things that really sound Celtic, like Irish jigs, and then they sound a little bit like Appalachian fiddle tunes, And the final movement is kind of this really fast, frenetic piece. It's called Head for the Hills, And that one's got a little interlude that's like a complete bluegrass break. It's just like banjo and they play on that jug. It's
Bug
total
bands.
banjo. And it's a really fun piece. And I was very honored that he wrote it for me, because he kind of he respects my ability to be narrative when I play. To be a storyteller, and that's really the idea with the piece. That I want people to, if I succeed in playing it, they should have a film going of imagining the bootlegger, like hiding, and then the people, the feds chasing them, and then they run, and and so hopefully it'll work out.
Well, that makes me thirsty. I'm gonna have some.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, this is it's not vodka. That's just water.
Cheers.
So, now looking at your project, now you commissioned Dusan Bogdanovich to write, right?
I did.
However, on the program, you're not doing one of those pieces, correct?
Yes, this is one of the things that I owe Dusan. He wrote me an amazing piece. Amazing piece. It's called The Castle in Cloudland, and it's based on a Serbian folk tale that he heard his grandmother told him. And I will play it soon. But it's hard. Miro, you know how hard Dusan's music can be, right?
I do.
Yeah. But I've played this other piece by Dusan for years, and I just absolutely love it. And it fits this project so well. And it's his 3 African sketches. And there's this little trick. I use a little staple, like, to connect the strings to get this kind of rattle on the outer movements. And it's meant to imitate the African harp called the kora, which has this lovely rattle on it. But Dusan just totally understands the essence of African music, traditional music, especially the polymeter that goes on, with it, and that's his thing. He's all about 2 or 3 times going on at once. And it's a really fun piece. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So, before we talk about the walls, because that's what I really want to finish with, I want to talk about the rest of the program, and because you have some traditional rep on this as well. You've got the Duarte, the English suite, and you have Sevillana, right? So Torina. So how does that fit into the program? Is there a connection to your project in those pieces?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, because for me the through line is really folk music, and the Turina is it's art music of the highest level, but it's rooted deeply in the music of the gypsies. It is a sevillanas, and it evokes the flamenco tradition, of the strummed chords, and then the cantejondo melodies, and you can hear the stomping feet, and then the John Duarte English suite is, it's just right down the middle of British folklore. It's kind of like Elgar and all those guys. It captures that very proper English thing. And that's also a very programmatic piece, I feel, because he wrote that for Segovia for his wedding, and I think of that piece 3-movement thing of the first movement's like a processional. It's like people showing up at the wedding, and the second movement's this beautiful melody, and I think of that as being the exchange of vows. And then the last movement, the round dance, is like the big party, after the wedding, So all of the pieces have some direct connection with folk music, and like the Leo Brouwer pieces I'm playing, they're 2 of his very early arrangements of Cuban folk pieces, Cuban folk songs, and even Brian Head's pieces are based on American folk music in a way. One is kind of like bluegrass a little bit, and the other one is absolutely. I think of jazz as being, the American music, and it's Brookland Boogie is a jazz piece. So that's the through line of the music of people throughout the world, um, expressed on the same instrument.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. Well, now let's talk about the walls. I'm so excited about this one. Just it's a huge work. It's what, 5 movements, right?
Yeah.
And and I've seen, and I just have to ask you before we get into talking about some other things. Yo-Yo Ma did a recording of this, right? It's on YouTube. It was done through the VGO, I believe. Also an Augustine project, if I'm correct. And beautiful, it's like, wow, Yo-Yo Ma, and then all these incredible guitars, right? Oh my gosh, it's like everybody, it's like all my idols, and now my idol in the Zoom right now too. And Miro, you're my idol too. So, but but just what an incredible production it was, and there are some differences between what they produced with the cello and what you do on the guitar, right? And so first I was wondering, is there a difference in the score itself for the cello versus the guitar?
Um, the piece was originally written for solo guitar and guitar orchestra, and as many people know, Sergio is really good friends with Yo-Yo Ma. The Assads toured with Yo-Yo Ma on his Silk Road project. Um, and I guess Sergio told him about that piece or played it for him, and Yo-Yo was like, I want to do this. And so Sergio arranged the guitar part for cello. I don't believe there's many. If there's any changes, it's really minor. It's essentially is the same piece. Um, but when they did it on video, they had to make some adaptations of it, because it wasn't a live performance. Yeah.
Right. Well, one thing that and when I think about the Great Wall, which is the first movement, um, you know, when you play, it's like a peepaw.
Right.
And when Yo-Yo plays, it's like an arhu. I mean,
Right.
and,
Right.
and it's just, it's wow. It just both work so well.
Yeah.
They really do. They really
Yeah.
do. Um, and and I just love that my brother actually speaks 3 dialects of Chinese, and he plays Erhu, and I brought this, just it's show and tell. I have a peepaw, so there we are. Don't ask me to play it though. So
Nice.
yeah, my wife was touring in China, and she it was our anniversary, and we were away, and so she bought that for me, and so this was a wedding gift. But one of these days I'll learn how to play it. It's kind of opposite from guitar because they pluck out instead of in, and things like
Exactly.
that. So, but it's really fun to play with. My students love to see it sometimes. But anyway, but I do love. I love this. I mean, just incredible. The Great Wall, so well written. And then the next one is what's Hadrian's Wall, right? You want to talk a little bit about that one?
Sure. And I also want to invite Miro, if anything that you want to add to the discussion, from your perspective. Miro is going to be conducting this wonderful group. Do you have a name for the orchestra? Is it?
Yes, they're called Loudon Youth Guitars, and it's a
Yeah.
group that's made up of select middle school and high school students from our county.
Fantastic.
Oh
That
yeah.
is great. And Kevin, as you know, like, I've got a wonderful history with the Loudon um, guitar ensemble culture. As you guys know, you guys did the world premiere of Shiki with Shingo Fuji when he came out. That was unforgettable
Oh,
experience.
I know. Just a really, it's one of the top memories that I have. It really
Yeah,
is.
so
And
fantastic.
the
So I'm
connection
really
with students, yeah.
really looking forward to it. So, the I mean, the structure of the whole piece, maybe I could just back up and
Sure.
see it from a remove here a little bit, is um, what what Sergio was trying to do was to paint these musical portraits of historical or future walls. And there's a sort of overt political message there, but I think he wrote such beautiful music that it just can stand on its own, just regardless of your political philosophy, so the first one clearly is painting this portrait of the Great Wall of China, one of the most famous, recognizable barriers constructed in history. And actually, at the very beginning of that piece, there are it's this very, very sweet kind of undulating sound, but then there are these notes that are dissonant that come in, and he said each one of those represents like 100,000 people who died building it. It's just kind of like the pyramids, slave labor, kind of built it. Anyway, so the second one is Hadrian's Wall, which of course it was the wall sort of near Scotland that the Romans tried to keep the Scots out, and it failed completely. So that piece, it's a kind of combination of almost like Ben-Hur, Roman. I think he was thinking of like the Romans in their galleons, like sailing up to the British Isles. It's definitely got this sort of on the ocean kind of thing, and then a really fantastic imitation of the bagpipes on guitar, and that just works so great. And then how the two themes interact. So that's what that one's about. Yeah.
And then the Berlin Wall, and I've got to ask Miro, how did the kids react to the Berlin Wall with its 12-tone system?
Well, the 12-tone system is mostly what's in the solo part. So once, by the time we get to the orchestra, it gradually changes and the harmonies become more and more consonant in this transition to the end, where we finally hear the Ode to Joy theme. So it's also a really, really great way it was constructed, that it does that transition from 12-tone to tonal basically in the piece. And the kids liked it. They really attuned to the music. It's very beautiful. We get to play these beautiful harmonies underlying the melody, and it's just heartwarming. They really feel the beauty of the music and of these beautiful harmonies.
And they get to make some guttural screams too, don't they?
Yes. So
really,
we're gonna have to fire them up somehow. It's a little embarrassing too.
Well, those are so at the beginning of that movement, it's very severe sounding,
Yes.
and I'm playing this 12-tone theme. He wanted to represent Germany being the sort of where the Decafani was created, but each of those those guttural screams, it's meant to be like someone who was trying to escape East Berlin on the wall and being shot by the Stasi. So it's not funny. It's not a gag. It's supposed to be deadly serious and poignant. But it was, I think, a stroke of genius that he then morphs this 12-tone theme into, as you mentioned, sweeter and sweeter, and then in a very disguised way, he introduces the famous Ode to Joy melody from Beethoven's Choral Symphony, which finally sort of erupts in this joyous, big statement. And, the history of the Berlin Wall, of course, is that when it fell, the Berlin Philharmonic, conducted by Leonard Bernstein, played that piece like on the rubble of the wall, to represent, peace, and that tune became the anthem of the European Union. They changed it, not Ode to Joy, but Ode to Brotherhood, I think. So it's pretty poignant, but at the very end, there's this hint back of the 12-tone thing, almost to say we have to watch that these evil forces pull us apart, as we're seeing now. You know, that you know they're not. We haven't been victorious completely over them. Yeah.
Right. Now the West Bank Wall.
Well, actually, you know what? It's now got a different title. It's Middle East
Middle
Walls.
Eastern Walls. Okay, I've seen both, but I was looking at the score, and it says, you know, so and so.
Yeah, that's an old version of the score.
Okay.
Yeah, we, you know, it's, you know, again, it's interesting because, you know, things are very sensitive right now politically, right? And this is the one area that the wall is there.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so, you know, I think we're calling it Middle Eastern Walls now and not being so specific.
Right.
But regardless of how you view it, it's clearly he's representing Arabic culture and Judaic culture in that piece. And you know, Sergio, who, you know, his father was born in Lebanon, you know, so he knows this music so well, and there I get to sort of, you know, do my best imitation of an oud, you know, with all the little bends and the little, you know, microtonal twiddles and stuff, and then it becomes this sort of dialogue between that and this klezmer idea. And finally, at the very end, the oy vey sort of wins at the end of the piece.
Right.
I'd like to add just one little thing.
Yeah.
Even if those who are listening could not recognize the different styles of music in this movement, there are changes in tempo. So you know, even if you don't recognize the sound, you will hear, oh, faster, oh, slower, and it goes back and forth between faster and slower. And so each of the styles has its not only own character but its own tempo as well, which I find very, very interesting too. And they're pulling back and forth all the time, back and forth, until it finally, like you said, it evolves into this very joyous horror at the end.
Right. And that's, you know, quite a difficult you know, thing to ask of middle school students, to be able to play this complicated music and jump from one tempo to the other. So, you know, that's really impressive that they can do it.
There was a difference on this one. There was a difference between the cello version and this one, in that this one starts with a lot of percussion, right? And that was not present in the Yo-Yo Ma video.
that was a little thing I added.
Okay.
That, you know, part of the reason I added the percussion, I mean, first of all, guitar can do it, you know, pretty easily. I mean, Sergio actually, when they were planning the version with cello, he was thinking of actually hiring an actual percussionist to do it, but I guess they decided not to. But part of it was, when I first performed it, the group had a little trouble just like hitting the feel right at the beginning. It was, you know, and so I just thought, well, it goes like this, and I just went boom, tink, tink, dum, bum, dum, tink, tink, you know, as like a little, you know, drum intro, and I was like, this I'm gonna keep this. So I actually,
it works really well. It sets both the tempo and the mood for the piece. I think I really like those 4 measures added at the beginning.
Yeah. So, but I think in the published version now, the official new published version, it's not there, but there's a little note that says you can add this if you want, you know, kind of thing. So
wow.
This piece actually went through so many different like reincarnations, like, and I have the Sibelius files, like there's like 50 versions of it. So it's like one of those, you know, like, you know, but I think we finally got it all worked out, you know. But
well, you know, I think that's the wonderful thing, you know, is that you know, just because something gets put pen to paper, you know, doesn't mean that's the final draft. You know, it's like, I don't know how many times I've come back to something and it's like, oh, I'm going to change this. You know, I think that's the creative process, right?
Right.
And I think that's, and this is living proof of it. Now, the piece is not that old, though. I mean, it was premiered just a few years ago, right?
I'm trying to think exactly when it was premiered. Well, officially, see, I didn't actually premiere it because it was a co-commission with, there's a German-based guitar orchestra, and it was premiered with Agnello Desiderio in Germany. And then I played it for the first time about 9 months later. I played it for the first time with Cami Rowan conducting down in Greensboro at Guilford College. And if I remember, I mean, it was November, I think, 2017, maybe.
Okay.
I think it might have been November 2017, but I can't now. I'm not sure.
All right.
Sounds
Well, then
about right.
it went to Carnegie Hall, right? And then on tour, right?
Yeah, so Cami organized the U.S. Guitar Orchestra in 2019, and we played it at Zankel Hall in Carnegie there, and then we went to France and did a tour with it. It was fantastic.
Wow.
But I've performed it now quite a few times. Like, I don't know exactly how many, I haven't counted it up, but it's at least like maybe 15 times, I think.
Wow.
And it's a pretty powerful thing, like the last movement is maybe the most overtly political. It was, pardon me, it was written during the beginning of the Trump administration, and when the wall was a big thing. And so, he wrote this movement that's basically, I'm playing this Mexican folk tune, and then, I somehow, through some very clever choreography, am restrained, from and hidden from the audience, and then music somehow is able to break through that wall and end in a joyous, hopeful way. And I, despite where you sit politically on any of these, delicate issues, I think Sergio's message is that, well, music, he likes to say, music can go over the wall and connect the people on both sides of it, and hopefully someday we won't need these walls.
Well, and that's what an incredible piece, and I can't wait to experience it. And I gotta say, it's an experience, right? Because it's got everything. It's not just an oral thing, but you just visually, there are things in it that I think grab the listener, by the ear and by the eye, and by their soul. And it's just like, and how many different cultures you get to experience in one piece too, that's the other powerful thing there. I mean, it's just
Well, Sergio does a pretty amazing job without being kind of derivative, or hokey. He's able to capture like the essence of these different cultures, and it's the good side of cultural appropriation.
right, right. Yeah, I
It's
mean,
appropriation. But actually, I almost, it would be, in a way, if people almost get a film going in their mind while they're listening to it, that would be great. I mean, the project for the virtual guitar orchestra with Yo-Yo Ma, they did a beautiful job of interspersing actual videos, of the Great Wall and of Hadrian's Wall, and different scenes from the Middle East, etc. That was really beautiful. We won't have that, but I think people can put that on in their mind. That's what I'm hoping.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to just pick Miro's brain here a little bit, if I could. And so, the question is about the ensemble that you're conducting. It's the Loudon Youth Ensemble, right? Or Loudon Guitars. Okay, great. Now, how long has that organization been around? How long have you been working with those kids?
Well, the organization has been around for 14 years, and we've had a lot of success playing in the area, and I'm blessed to be the conductor of this group because I get to work with some of the best kids in the county, so it's just a great thing in general.
And I was thinking, just thinking about this project too, is that
Right.
now you take your kids and they've performed at various embassies around Washington, right?
Yeah, yeah, we do a series of concerts throughout the year, but this is going to be very, very special. First time for our group to be on the Marlowe International Guitar Series. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
But I was
However, we
gonna
did
say,
play at the Kennedy Center, but hey, this
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. No, I
this
was
is
just gonna say the different embassies that represent different countries, and there's a connection kind of in with that with the experiences these kids have when they like play for the Croatian embassy or something like that, right? So, so I just think that's a fantastic experience for these kids.
absolutely.
Um, what is the age range of these students?
So our group consists of middle schoolers, seventh, eighth grade, and high schoolers. So we have quite a bit of difference in age and experience, of course, and so that sometimes it creates some challenges, to be able to include everybody, regardless of age and level of playing. But luckily we've had enough time to work on this project and give everybody enough time to get ready for it. So I think everybody has learned so much, and the kids love the music, and I think it will show in the performance.
So when did you guys start rehearsing this?
Well, we started at the beginning of the school year. I was contacted over the summer about this project, and I got really excited about it. And we started over, at the beginning of the school year and slowly worked on it. I was really, really nervous with the original date of performance, which was supposed to be, I think, January 21st. And I have to say,
Thank
it was a
God
good
for
thing that it
Omicron.
got postponed. Exactly. And it gave us just the amount of time that we needed to really learn the piece and bring it up to the right tempos and play it with style and character that each of the movements represents.
Fantastic. How many kids are in the group?
We're going to have about 20. That's we don't know if everybody's going to be there and be in good health, but 20 is roughly
And
sometimes
there's an
20.
electric bass, right?
There's an electric bass, which really adds a lot. It really gives this foundation, which is very, very helpful, both rhythmically as well as harmonically, as a harmonic foundation. And this was Bill's recommendation to use it. And I really like it very much because it adds, the orchestra gets, it gets a new dimension by having that low sound, which is amplified, definitely.
So obviously, the kids haven't worked with Bill yet.
Mhm.
So how do the rehearsals go without him? Are you singing his parts, or I mean, what's going on here? What do you do? What are you doing?
Okay, well, in the beginning, we were just working on particular sections and making sure that the sections are learned, and then we would simply skip the measures. If Bill's part is 2 measures long, we would just wait it out. But recently we started working with the video, so we are projecting the video of one of his performances and trying to play along, just to get the idea of how long do we have to wait between this sections that we play and so on. But this is all this is all framework, and of course, the most important things will happen. And I know this is going to be, a lot of new ideas and new things will be happening in the rehearsals with Bill, when everybody's on stage and everybody starts feeling the music together.
Okay. Now, so I think about like a professional orchestra, right? And I've worked with them. I'm sure you have too. And sometimes you get that one rehearsal and then a concert, or maybe two rehearsals if you're lucky. How many times are the kids going to get to work with Bill in preparation?
Well, we're going to have 3 rehearsals, which is pretty much like you would get with a professional
That's great,
orchestra.
though.
Maybe
I mean,
you know, 2. Yeah. And that's the reason why we really wanted to make sure we're very well prepared, so that, you know, there's very little to be worked out, you know, in these 3 rehearsals, so that we can really work on music, on his ideas, what he wants us to do with him, and how we are going to breathe with him and follow him the best we can.
Right.
And I think we'll be ready for that.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
and
You know, we were talking about Shingo before, and our, you know,
Right.
our experience, you know, with Loudon, and Shingo kind of made me fall in love with this idea of playing with guitar orchestras, especially with younger players, and you know how important it is for them in formulating an early experience as a professional, because so many young players, and you know this goes also for amateur older players, you know, who never really get the chance to play in front of like a real audience. You know, they play for their teacher, or they play for their friends, or you know, in a small group, but this is a real concert. Like, you know, and I'm like a known guy, you know, so they're going to get up on stage, and you know Miro's going to go boom, and like the focus that they get, and they're like, wow, this is real, and the excitement of that experience and the audience response, you cannot simulate that any other way. It really gives them a unique experience that will carry them through, even if you know they don't decide to become professional musicians. It's a real sense of accomplishment, and I applaud Miro for all the incredible diligence he's given to get them prepared for that experience. But Shingo used to say, you know, that he always felt like the most important moments were the working together at the rehearsals, like, and for them to see what does a real performance preparation look like. You know, what are we really doing here? And so that's the most fun part for me.
Oh yeah. And I did have another question, Miro. What is the kid's favorite wall?
Hmm. Um, I would say maybe the Middle Eastern one,
Yeah.
because of it uses a lot of percussion, and it's very fun percussion sounds that they get to use, and it's just very, it just moves you, you know, it has a very, very nice feel, and it is so dramatic also, with all these changes, all these dualisms between different cultures, which are very beautifully represented in music. So it's and then this incredible, there's this acceleration that happens in this movement, and it's just so, and they also get to tune their guitars in the middle of the movement, some of them. So
That
there's
was
a lot of,
that was my idea too. I'm sorry
that's
about
such
that.
a clever thing. I mean, this is so cool, because when they change the keys, they go from D to E flat to E. So they play and then they tune their string each time. So just to transition, to modulate from D minor to E minor, and it all happens with an acceleration. So it's just a very, very fun. And of course, you know, they like that a lot. That may
You
be,
could
that
say
may be one of mine.
you could say it's an increase in tension.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, this has been an amazing conversation. It's been great talking with both of you, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be in the audience to experience this, because it's really going to be an experience, and I'm sure it's going to be an experience for our audience too. So thank you so much, and we'll see you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks,
Thank you.
Miro.
Thank you.